Hey guys, welcome to this video. I want to show you the best settings to use for your Action 4 or your GoPro camera. You can do this on most modern action cameras. Now some of these settings might not make sense to you, so you can either just do exactly the settings that I give you, but I'll also explain them along the way as briefly as I can without this becoming a full-on videography video. So first off, I am using the Action 4 from DJI. I found that this camera has the best battery life, and I really like the colors that come out of it. So I've been very, very happy with this. I would buy another one of these, and they're quite cheap at the moment, $329. So all the footage you see from me has come from a camera like this. So the most basic settings that I would change would be your frame rate. And obviously I shoot in 4K, 16:9. I never really shoot 4:3 because it tends to not stretch as well as I need it to for vertical video for Instagram. But the main thing that I would change immediately is your frame rate. And the only reason you wouldn't change this is because you want to go slow-mo. So say you want to go slow-mo, I would go 50 frames per second, or I will go 100. Now the question is, why wouldn't you go 120 or 60? This is because, and this is my opinion, is I think for speed sports, 25 frames looks the most cinematic. It has the best look about it. All the videos you see of mine on YouTube are pretty much shot at 25 frames per second. And so that's the first thing I would change. If you want a better looking footage, that's what I would do. More cinematic. So here's an example of Alex Tibby's camera that he knows nothing about the settings. And we went on a run and he just used the Action 4, the exact same camera, but he used the settings straight out of the box. Almost everything's on auto. And if you look at the picture quality, everything looks very detailed, doesn't look particularly fast, and it doesn't look particularly good. Now, if you contrast with my settings that I have in this clip, you will see that things look significantly faster and significantly better. And there's only a couple of things you need to change. And I will show you these exact settings that you could use. Now, I will caveat this with, you do lose a bit of stabilization. That is the one downside. So if you are quite shaky and you're pumping around a lot, it can get a little bit shaky with these settings. So let's dive in to the settings menu. Now on this one, obviously it's over here. So we've set our frame rate to 25 frames per second. The next thing we're gonna do is, now if you're doing point of view for yourself, you wanna go as wide as you possibly can. And that's for obvious reasons. Now my battery's dying, so I need to hurry up. Now on the Action 4, I think similar to the GoPros at the moment, there is like a pro settings. Now what this means is that you choose all the other parameters that the camera automatically does for you normally. So in this instance, one of the most important ones is exposure. So this 1/50 here, this is your shutter speed. Shutter speed is like how quickly you open the iris of the camera lens. Boop. So 1/1000, if I did that, that's what you do for, say, sports photography. You want a really crisp, sharp image of a fast moving object, you do something like 1/1000, 1/2000. And that's because it flashes, it lets in light, boop, and it shuts almost immediately. So what you end up with is a very crisp image. But for speed, we actually don't want that. We want motion blur. Now the way this works is you put this to 1/50. Now why 1/50? Because our frame rate, if I can get it to work, our frame rate is 25 frames per second. So you always want, so say it's 1/50, frame rate's 25. So you always double it. If we were to shoot in 50 frames per second, you would double it and your frame rate would be, your shutter speed, sorry, would be 1/100. This is what videographers do. This is what all cinematographers pretty much do as for their settings. Now I set this manually. So it does mean that if you're out in the water and you suddenly decide, oh, I want to get a slow motion clip, you would need to go in and manually adjust that as well, or else it won't look right. So for this example, 25 frames per second, so we double our frame rate, and that's 1/50. Do is just set an ISO setting, which is this setting over on the right. ISO is pretty much just the camera compensating for darkness or lightness. So if you make the ISO 12,000, it's going to be extremely bright image and it won't work in sun settings. So normally, given that we're usually in sunny settings, you can go 100 to 400, or you can go 100 to 800. And that just means if it does get dark or cloudy, the camera can automatically still jump between those ISO ranges. Now, if that doesn't make sense, doesn't matter. Just do the settings that I've told you to do. So we hit confirm. Now, auto white balance, I usually just leave it on auto white balance. Don't need to worry about that. Now, color, you can go what they call D-log, which is a very flat profile, but don't upload that footage. You need to colorize it, and there are things called LUTs, which essentially apply a bunch of settings to the image to make it come back to real color. I wouldn't do that if I were you. For most of you, I would just go normal color. That's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. Now, the key about this is if you use these settings, so if you don't watch the rest of this video, you're gonna have a big muck up. And that's because what you have to have is ND filters. Now, because the settings that we're using, what they mean is that the shutter is open for a long time. So it lets in a lot of light. And if you don't have the appropriate ND filter on, and ND stands for neutral density, it will let in too much light and you will end up with essentially a white image. And I'll show you an example of this now, of me not using the ND filter. And now you can see I've put the ND filter on. It's essentially sunglasses, and it means that that shutter can open without letting way too much light in. So that's what you need. Now, you can get these, the DJI ones come in a little pack, and you can get these off the website. You can't seem to find them in store. But as you can see, I've only got one left. Now, that's because they do fall off. So I've learned the hard way, you actually need to get the floaty housing in order to get them to stay on. I will give credit where credit's due. GoPro are the only ones that their ND filters, I believe, screw on or they sort of twist on, and that would be a handy feature to have. Having said that, I've never had any software issues with the Action 4, whereas the GoPros, I've had so many software issues too. So, look, I hope that makes sense. I will make another video about how to film yourself better when you're subfoiling in general, but this is a question I've had so many times, and hopefully my examples make some sense to you about why you might do this. If anything, just shoot 4K, 25 frames per second. And then if you can be bothered, go into those pro settings and change those other settings to make the best possibly cinematic footage you can. I will say another downside is it is a bit of a headache, and you do need to watch. So say it's going to be a cloudy day and then sunny, so you know that there's cloud traveling through. You can get overexposure, and you can see in this Hawaii footage that I was a little bit overexposed because when we started the run, it was overcast, and then throughout the run, and unless you've got what essentially not what you'd normally do, and what I do with, say, my big pro camera, is I have an adjustable ND filter, and I can make it go darker or lighter just through changing the lens. And you can see I'll do this here now even. So that's me just turning it, and that's letting in less or more light. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that that helps you make better footage so you can share your sessions with people. So that's all from me for this one, and we'll see you in the next video.